Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hi.
I'm Pam Krieger,
Nice
the
to meet
coordinator.
you.
Is it okay to record your?
Yeah, why not? I mean, the only thing is that none of these things is mine. I have to go Google everything, so I don't know. But other than that, yeah.
Your mic is on. Do you like to sit, walk around? How do you like to present?
I don't know. I'll find out.
Okay, here's your chair if needed. You just pull this out if you need it and you want to just walk around.
No, it's fine. Here I can actually see it.
You can actually see right in front of you.
Oh, God, that's good. Yeah. It's basically the same thing as we have done before here for United Nations Day and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you. When you turn, to look and keep talking, then the sound isn't as good because you're not right
Not
here.
only does that, at my age, it takes time to. Last night, we went to see this thing at the Flips Center, the performance, and I was looking at it. You know, the seats in the balcony, they look comfortable. My wife said, no. There you will have to continuously look on the side. Stay right in front.
So this is your clicker,
Okay.
and so you can manipulate the PowerPoint.
Okay, let's see.
Sometimes the first page doesn't work that well, but Pam will take care of the first page for you.
Now try it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
And it has a laser if you want it.
This is laser right there?
The red button. It's not very strong. This red right here.
Oh, okay. Okay,
It's not
good.
that good.
That's good. Thank you, ma'am. So, anytime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she'll introduce me, and then I'll introduce you.
Okay, good.
Beautiful.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see you here. Welcome, Zoomers. Please stay muted. If you're in the room and you have a cell phone, could you please silence it? It would be greatly appreciated. And Rick Gold is here, who's going to introduce our speaker for today.
Okay, thanks so much, Pam. So welcome back to the Heritage Celebration course. And we're learning all about different heritage in the U.S. and how people share and celebrate their identity, whether it's one identity or multiple identities. And so we've looked at Hispanic heritage, Jewish American heritage, and today we're looking at South Asian American heritage. Our speaker today is Professor Saeed Khan, who is a retired, Professor Emeritus at UF Department of Pathology, and he comes from South Asia, where he attended Agra University in India for his bachelor's, Peshawar University in Pakistan for his master's, and then got his PhD at University of Florida. He's been working not only as a professor of urological research, but also professor of pathology during his career at the University of Florida. Professor Khan has been extremely active in the community. He's been president of the retired faculty of the University of Florida. He also was president of the United Nations Association, where I met him. And he's been very active in the Muslim community as the president of the Mercy Clinic at the Hoda Islamic Center, and also president of the Muslim Association of North Central Florida. And he was in an important association to us, the Welcoming Gainesville and Alachua County, where he was president. And earlier he was vice president of the City of Gainesville's Cultural Affairs Board. So Dr. Khan, go ahead. Thank you so much.
This morning, I didn't expect that this was happening, because, I mean, the city is closed, the university is closed. But this morning when I got up, I went outside to see. I really got up early. I thought maybe early there will be some flurry. And there I got out. Yeah, I looked at I have a papaya plant, which I'm very careful about. So yesterday I had gone out and picked up all the big papayas from it. So the first thing I wanted to find out how good or bad the weather was. I look at the papaya tree, and papayas are still there. The leaves are like this. Said, not that cold. But it's nice. It's kind of. So anyway, when they asked me that to talk about the South Asian heritage, well, part is this. I was born in British India. So for about 4 years, I was a citizen of Britain, British India. Then, okay, I was the subject. And after that, I became an object. Then, for the first 20 some years, I lived in the newly independent India and did all my schooling. And I can show you some of those pictures here. Um, This is the high school I went to. This is the college I went to. But you should look at the names written in different languages there. So this is an important part of India, that India is so huge and I mean, the South Asia is actually 1/4 of the population of the world. And India is one of the biggest country in there. And the part I wanted to show you was that both these buildings, the high school was built, but in India, during British days, India used to have what they call them small estates, and they had their own rulers. And every ruler had an advisor from the Britain, and of course they were paying respect and all that to the Britain. The Muslim rulers were mostly called Nawabs. Hindu rulers were called Rajas. When it became bigger, then they were Maharaja. Then there was a Muslim state in South India, Hyderabad. It was so big, its economy at the time was bigger than France, the size was bigger than France, the population was bigger than that, education was bigger than France. So think about that. That was such a huge place. And the part is, if you look at that building to the right, and you can imagine the other two buildings, they were all built by the Nawabs, the local rulers. And this particular building is called Hamid Manzil. And my high school was also called Hamid High School. That was the name of the ruler, or the Nawab, who built those things. And actually, almost every college and every building in those days, they were turned old palaces of Nawab into colleges and high schools and things. But this building is extremely important because this houses the library, Raza Library. Building's name is Hamid Manzil. The city where I grew up is called Rampur. This was started in 1774, this library, not the building. And it has collections of manuscripts, historical documents, and Indo-Islamic cultural heritage. The manuscripts, 17,000. They're Arabic, Persian, Sanskrit, Hindi, Urdu, Pashto, Tamil, and Turkish. 60,000 printed books in various languages. And the biggest thing it has, for the Muslim perspective, it has some of the original handwritten copies of Quran. One of them is actually claimed to be written by the Caliph Ali, which, if you are familiar with Sunnis and Shias and Islam, that he was one of the four top caliphs. So handwritten copies. So a lot of people actually come just to look at those from the Muslim countries and non-Muslim countries alike. So this is one of the very important institution in Rampur. But the other very important part about this building is, you look at the minaret. That building has 8 minarets. Now, this minaret, the way it is built, the bottom part looks like mosque, the second church, the third Gurdwara, which is a place for Sikh worship, and the top is temple. So the Nawabs and the rulers in India were very familiar of the diversity that existed in the country. This cannot be, I mean, think about this thing. It was built years and years ago, but they built it with including symbols of all the religions, with most important religions of India. So when we talk about South Asia, which, I mean, sometime South Asia can include so many different countries. But from my point of view, or generally considered, is that this is India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and Maldives. Maldives are very small islands out there. That is the map of South Asia. Sometimes they include Afghanistan, but generally it's not considered. And of course, the map has got this biggest thing is the China over there. But this is what is. So I thought first, as I was pointing out to where the name of my college was written in 3 different languages. So the languages in India that are spoken, their origin, if you look up the origin of these languages, such a variety of them, and then you look at the India as a whole and the Sri Lanka, and you see that there is a Hindi, the Gujarati, the Marathi, the Tamil, the Malayalam, the Sinhalese. I mean, the variety of languages that are spoken in this part of the world is just incredible. And sometimes the people who live in the north cannot communicate with the people who live in the south. Malayalam is very different than the languages that are spoken up. So the other very important part is that if you look up there, there is a Hindi, Marathi, Telugu. When you go into part which is Pakistan, you say Baloch, Pashto, Persian. Urdu is a very small part written. But Urdu was one of the most commonly understood language in the entire South Asia. And now actually it is through the movies that are made in India, in Bollywood, that language is understood throughout. I mean, in this country, there are people that I know who don't speak Urdu. They actually watch movies from Bollywood, particularly Shah Rukh Khan's movies. So there is an Indian actor. There was a time when the Google had just come up, I will look my name, S.R. Khan. Well, there was a time that I could find it. But recently, if I put S.R. Khan, it goes to Shah Rukh Khan, not me. Anyway, so what I'm trying to emphasize here is the variety of languages that are spoken in this part. And I didn't even show the Maldives, which is, I don't really actually know what language they speak, so I could not find the details. Now, the important part of the South Asia is that this is the birthplace of four religions: Hinduism, the Buddhism, Sikhism, and Jainism. The three other religions that are practiced in there, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, they arrive with the arrival of the people from the west part of the thing. And some, like even that, what is that called, Zoroastrian, which was originally an Iranian thing, but they still have in India those. So it's India, Pakistan, China, they're showing there, but India and Pakistan, they have such a variety of religion. Now here is religious population as percentage of total population. In India, of course, the you see Hinduism is about 80%. Nepal is 80, more than 80%. Afghanistan, of course, Pakistan, about 96% Muslims. And Maldives Islands are 100% Muslims. So now I thought I should tell you a little bit about important the celebrations that different group of people make celebrations. So you can see this thing, the part is the Diwali, which is the, let me just look at there, the Festival of Lights, and celebrated in late October or early November. And the part is this, it symbolizes the victory of good over evil, and Diwali is also celebrated by Sikhs also, they celebrate it. The other one is Holi, which is the festival of colors. It's celebrated in spring. It commemorates the victory. Again, it's basically the same concept, victory of good over the evil. And then there is celebration. And I mean, this is one of those two celebrations, Hindus' celebrations are done all over. I mean, even in Gainesville, you will see people celebrating and everybody is taking part in it. And I used to love Diwali because we had some, because where I lived, again, as I was mentioning, that it was a very diverse population there. We had Hindus and Muslims and Sikh. We didn't have too many Christians other than there were Christian schools there. So in both Holi and Diwali, we used to celebrate with our Hindu friends. It was very interesting because in Diwali, there are also these sweets, and I love sweets. And then, of course, the other very interesting one, again, the Dasera is basically the same thing, victory of good over evil. Specific names are there, but its concept is the same. But I love this thing, Raksha Bandhan, that every year in this celebration, the sisters put a thing around the brother. That is the bond between brothers and sisters. And I remember when I was in Australia, we used to have, my sister was Veena, because I was a postdoc there. She was a postdoc there. Her husband and me, we were very good friends. So when the time came for Raksha Bandhan, he said, Saeed bhai, I want to put that thing on you. I said, yeah, of course. So we became brothers and sisters. So that is a extremely nice and beautiful ceremony and beautiful celebration of the bonds between the sisters and brothers. And then, of course, when you see the word Janmashtami, it means birthday. So Krishna's birthday, Navratri, this is another one. This is a festival that honors the wife of Shiva. Shiva is the original god in Hindu religion, I think. And then celebration of birth of Ram and celebration the Saraswati, who is the goddess of learning. So a lot of the students, they pray to Saraswati, which is the Lord of learning, goddess of learning. When it comes to Islam, they are basically, as the religion is concerned, there are only two. First one is Eid al-Fitr, which is, and the second is Hajj, and the third is Eid al-Adha. What those three are, that in there is, because Muslims celebrations are based on, they have a lunar calendar. And every year there is a month called Ramadan, which is a month where Muslims are supposed to fast from during the daytime, complete fast, not even drinking water. So when that month of Ramadan finishes, we celebrate, and that celebration is called Eid al-Fitr. Fitr actually means fast. So you're fasting at the end of that. So that is other. Then there is another thing is, and I'm sure you may or may not have know it, that in Islam, in Mecca, there is this cubical structure, just the Kaaba, and that Kaaba, as far as Muslims are concerned, is the place where the first worship for a single God started. So that thing is Kaaba. And so every Muslim is, if he or she can afford, supposed to go and visit the Kaaba and perform their rituals, specific rituals they perform around that building, and that's called Hajj. And during this Hajj, it is a very interesting part, because according to the Islamic tradition, there was the mother of Ishmael was left at a place with the little kid, and there was not enough water, so she was looking for water. And she was running up between there were two small hills, between the two small hills, from one to the other, running, looking for the water. And then a water appeared. When she came back, she looked where the baby was lying, and the baby was kicking. Where the baby was kicking, there was water. So during one of the ritual during Hajj is, you exactly she did it 7 times, up and down. So you're supposed to repeat that as a ritual to remind what mothers and babies went through to that stage. And after that, this is Eid al-Adha is after the Hajj, after that performing, then they celebrate. And again, the celebration requires a sacrifice, but that sacrifice is also in the tradition of Jewish tradition, it's one son. In Islamic tradition, it is Ismail that Abraham was trying to sacrifice. So you sacrificed an animal in that. So that's what is called. And then there are others which are not as common, but there is called Eid al-Ghadr, where particularly because I don't know whether you know, there are two major sects in Islam, Sunni and Shia. So Shias say that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had actually laid down who should become, when he dies, who should be the first caliph. The Sunnis don't believe it. But that is what that day is, when they say he gave that sermon, and in that sermon, he laid out who should be the next caliph. And then there is a birthday of the Prophet, and then there is the part where Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad had a direct communication with God. And that was the first time on this particular day that he received the first message. So those are the celebration. Then there are Sikh. Those are three major religions, so that's why I'm trying to emphasize them here. So Sikh celebrations are the first one is when the Guru Granth Sahib, that is the book, just like the Bible or the Quran. That is the book, the Sikh. And it was sacred text that was formally adopted on a day in Amritsar, which is in the northern India, which is now is the place, very famous Golden Temple in Amritsar. So that is one celebration. Then after that, there are quite a few celebrations of different gurus, because they are all the religious leaders in Sikhism. They are called guru. The first one was Guru Nanak. Then there are other gurus after. So they have birthdays and days when they were martyred in there. And of course, they do celebrate, as I mentioned it earlier, with the Hindus, they celebrate Diwali, and then there is Vaisakhi, which celebrates the creation of Khalsa. I don't know, you may come across sometime. Khalsa is the warrior saints. And I don't know how many have you seen the Sikh. They're supposed to have a sword, they carry it, they wear it, and they have a comb in the hair, and they don't shave their hair. And so that's the part. And so their part of the religion is how to defend the religion. So now, 18th July in 1947, Indian Independence Act gained, of course, the royal assent. Then there is a celebration, which is Pakistan Independence Day is 14th of August. Indian Independence Day is 15th of August. Then 17th was the date when between India and Pakistan, they decided where the borders will be between the two. Then in the beginning, the Pakistan has West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which on March 26 became Bangladesh. Now, Maldives Independence Day is based upon Islamic calendar. So you cannot give, because as I was mentioning, Islamic calendar is based on lunar calendar. So you cannot say it will be the same day. Every year there's a 10 days difference. But this year it's supposed to be, I looked up what date will be this. The Rabiul Awal is the name of the Islamic lunar month, but it should be August 25 this year. Then September 9 is Nepal's National Day, which they celebrate as a Constitution Day. And the Bhutan's National Day is December 17, which is Bhutan still has a kingdom, a small kingdom though it is, but it's a very peaceful place, and they celebrate that coronation, I think, on December 17. Now let's come to the United States. So the people, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, that there was a time when nobody was allowed who was not European. So in 1914, the House of Representatives held hearings on legislation that sought to impose stringent, sweeping restrictions on the entry of Indian laborers in the US. Most of the Indian laborers were actually on the West Coast, and there were less than 10,000 of them. But then 3 years later, Congress passed the Immigration Act of 1917 that excluded from the United States all people living within a barred zone, which included India. And India is, as you know, basically complete South Asia. The legislation effectively codified the exclusionary practices against the small and fledgling Indian community, not more than 10,000 at the time. Then there was Lewis-Seller Act of 1946. It allowed immigrants from Indian subcontinent to become naturalized US citizens, but the law preserved stringent discriminatory admission quotas that capped India's numbers to just 100 individuals annually. Then in 1952, there was the McCarran-Walter Act. This act repealed laws that prevented Asians from becoming citizens and created a system of preferences. Then in 1965, Immigration and Nationality Act. This act abolished national origins quota that had previously excluded many Indians and other non-Europeans. So now, if you look up there, you can see it's I think last year or a year before that, the immigrant visas by thing. You can see that, of course, the biggest number is the Mexico, then the China, and then if you come down there, there's India 9.3 thousand, the Pakistan 7.2 thousand, and Afghanistan, of course, those were the people who were coming. And then there is a whole list of it. So after 1965, the people were coming from all over, whether it was China. I think when I was in, I think San Diego, and I was walking around, and they had descriptions about the exclusion of the Chinese at the time. But anyway, so there was, so now there is an immigration is allowed, and right now I'm sure you are familiar with what is going on with our President Trump, the H-1 visa, and that's given to people who qualify for certain jobs. And there is a big thing going on between two different factions in Trump's entourage. Some wants to give it, some say no. But anyway, it's very interesting what's going on. But then, of course, the Indians have always been, and here it is, the first Indian, Dalip Singh Sond. He was born in 1899 in India. And we are talking about the British India here. He was the lobbyist, judicial officer, academic, and Democratic Party politician, and served in the United States House of Representatives from 1956 to 1963. He was the first Sikh, Indian American, Asian American elected to the United States Congress. He was born, as I said, in British India, studied at Prince of Wales College and University of Punjab. In 1920, he migrated to the United States to continue his studies at the University of California, where he earned a Master of Arts and PhD. So this is the guy who started it. Now we have a samosa caucus. I'm sure you're familiar with Indian delicacy called samosa, and you're familiar that they have caucuses in the Congress. There is Italian American, now the Indian Americans, that's a samosa caucus. These are the representatives there. So the interesting part is these representations are not just, originally everybody was thinking of West Coast because that's where the Indians came. But here you look up there, Suhas Subramanian is from Virginia, Amy Berra, California, Pramila Jayapal, she's a female. Again, there's a male and female both. She's from Washington State. Subramanian is from Illinois, and Rohit Khanna is from California. So the Indian Americans are making strides in the politics, And of course, one of them was running for president, so we are familiar with it. And also, the wife of our vice president is of Indian origin. And of course, one of the other candidate who was running, and again, an Indian who was running for president, and now he's part of on the Republican ticket, and he is a part of President Trump's inner circle. So they are making strides. Now, the number of, the biggest thing that is happening is that in India, and because in United States, we are not producing enough graduates who can work in the STEM area. So we are importing them. So India has about 28.9% immigrants who are for STEM workers. They are from India. Then, of course, mainland China. Then there is later, when you come up there, Pakistan, about 1.4%. And the combined total of all the other countries is 38%. So there's a lot of Indians and Pakistanis and other people from the Southeast Asia, South Asia. They are here. And this is another map that I liked it. It was very interesting. Second most common religion. I mean, the Christianity, yes, but what is the second most common religion? And there are certain states that are high in those numbers. So you can look up there. I'm colorblind, so I had a hard time looking at it. But it is, you can see this thing that the Baha'is, I did not realize it, that the Baha'is will be in South Carolina and Dakota up there. I didn't know that were that many. But of course, in Gainesville, we have a pretty good group of Baha'is. And once in a while, they invite me, and I go there. And my actually neighbor is the past president of the group. So yeah, there is the people who are coming. I mean, there is the Hindus, the Muslims, the Buddhists, the Baha'is. They're from that part of the world. Judaism, of course, is the Western thing, but the rest of them. And they are quite a few of them. And that's what I think is making them, that they are moving in, taking part in the politics, taking part in, I mean, when I was preparing for this talk, I said, let's see how many Indians are faculty in various universities. You know how many pages it was? I mean, it was from A to Z, like 30 pages of them. I said, okay, we got the message. Quite a few of us here. I mean, particularly if you go to the statistics department, you'll find mostly Indians there. And so, yeah, we are proud of it. Now, I thought maybe I should put up some names up there. And I don't know how many of you watched the inauguration of the president. I was looking at it. No, I watched the whole thing. I enjoy doing those things. It was interesting. And so there, Satya Nadella is the CEO of Microsoft, Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, Parag Agarwal, CEO of Twitter was, Arvind, CEO of IBM, Vikram Pandit, CEO of Citigroup. So these are just the big names. I mean, if you look up the past President Biden's cabinet, you will find some pretty big names there. And but the thing that I enjoyed was this: top 10 South Asian women in tech and leadership. And there is a Farah Ali. She's VP Technology, Growth Strategy, Electronics. Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, founder and chairman of the board list. Meena Harris, founder and CEO of Phenomenal. Fatima Kardar, she is this Microsoft US. And you can just see. I was surprised of Neha Parekh being Waze because I use the Waze a lot. I didn't realize that it was. And then these are all basically started their own companies, and many of them are Canadians in Canada. So it's they're doing very well. So anyway, I thought I should stop right here, and because as I thought I should stop it with this quote from our President Carter, we become not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, different hopes, different dreams. Jimmy Carter. Actually, I would change that quote. Hopes and dreams are actually the same. When people come here, they are trying to better themselves for themselves, their families, and their kids. That's why they come there. So I think it is a, and thank you. I wrote down in different languages there. So thank you very much. You're welcome.
Okay. We're open to comments and questions from the audience as well as people on Zoom. So.
I'd be interested to know what your family's experience was during partition.
Uh, Actually, um, where I lived, I'm just talking about my own experience. We really didn't have too much suffering as the others did. Because first thing was, um, I lived in Rampur, which was a Muslim state run by a Nawab. And he was, as I showed you that minaret, he was very conscious of the type of people who were his subjects. And my friends, as I said, my house, there, right next to it was a Hindu. Right across from that was a Hindu. My classmates were Hindus. And so we really didn't go through, maybe because I was very little, so our parents may not have. The only thing happened was our two elder brothers and my uncle, who was about the same age as my eldest brother, the three of them, they decided to migrate to Pakistan. And the reason was because if you look at the map of India, the Pakistan got the part where there was only one university in Lahore. Most of the int- interesting area, educated area, they were all in the south of it. So the then prime minister, the first prime minister of Pakistan, he requested that the young men, Muslim men, they need you. So my brother actually worked in the office of the first prime minister, and he used to call him uncle. So that, and uh, and then he actually represented Pakistan in various events, like coming to United States. He actually went to university in Chicago, did international relations. So we were literally, we didn't have anything. And of course, those days there were no television telling us what the massacre is happening here or there or something. There were, the only thing people were concerned with was because from people from India, the Muslims were moving up to go to Pakistan, and the people from Pakistan were moving down to India. So there were a lot of population, particularly Sikh, who came to our town that we had never seen them before. And so there were a lot of things talking about the Sikh, but that never happened. When I grew up, my friends were Sikh, and I still remember I had a friend, a Sikh friend. He used to wear, they'd wear the turban and all that. And one day he comes in there, and he doesn't have a turban, and he had a nice shave. disappeared or something. I said, hey, what happened, Gujit? He said, yeah, I got tired of it. But when we talked to his mother, she cried like nobody's business. She went to the barber, got all her hair back. So, yeah, I mean, my childhood living in Rampur with my father's good friend was a Hindu. My own friends were Hindu. My cousin, that's a very, very interesting story about him. He had to go somewhere on business, so he told his friend, Hindu friend, take care of my mom when I'm gone. Anything she needs, you go there and ask. So he goes, asks the mom, Ammaji, what can I do? What can I get for you? No, nothing. Yeah, 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 go ahead. She orders him to go get meat. You know, in Hindus don't eat meat. And he did. What I'm saying is the part of this thing that we understood the differences and similarities. The other story, very interesting, when I'm a kid, I have Hindu friends. We go to the Hindu house, and the mother is cooking. And there, I don't know your place or something, the area which is around the cooking, boys are not allowed in, particularly if you're going into the Hindu house, Muslim. So she will give something to us over that. And we used to go there. I mean, it did not bother. What I'm just saying is it's not the question that you just respect it. Okay, this is it. What the heck? She's making samosas, I'm eating it. Who cares? Yeah.
Was it who asked about partition? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd make a comment. I was also a little girl. My family's experience. My family lived in what is now Pakistan, and we are Hindus, so of course had to come down. Partition occurred in August. So that summer before August, my mother, with her 3 children, my sister and brother and me, had come to Delhi to visit her mother. And she was going back in July. So she was at the train station, heading back to what is now Pakistan, to her husband's home. And a guy came up to her at the train station and said, "Sister, where are you going?" She said, "I'm going back to my husband's place." He said, "Please don't go. There's going to be trouble. Don't go. Go home. Stay there." So she went back to her mother's place. So we were safe in Delhi. My father was stuck in Pakistan. He couldn't come out. There was a family, a British family there, good friends of my father, who arranged a special escort for him to be flown out of the Pakistan area into Delhi a few months later. And all our luggage, all our goods was supposedly packed and sent to us in metal trunks. When we got our trunks, big metal ones, we were kids, we were very excited. We got our clothes, we got our toys. When we opened them, they were full of rocks. There was nothing in there. One other memory I have of partition is we were in Delhi at my grandmother's place, and the house is in old Delhi, flat roof with a parapet, not tall, like about this high parapet. And we as kids could hear the bullets flying at night, and we would go up to the roof for safety, to the roof, and crouch down there and just hear the ghost, fing, fing, bullets. I can still remember that as a little girl. That's my memory of Pakistan and India partition.
Thanks, Pushpa. Other comments or questions? I wanted to talk particularly about the solidarity within the South Asian community in the US. You started your presentation with a focus on diverse languages and diverse religions. Uh, and I've heard elsewhere that the concept of like an Asian community in the US is in some ways a myth that was created, that there really wasn't much solidarity among the wide range of Asian people in the US. What about South Asians? Is there some glue that brings them together in the US in terms of how they see themselves, how they act, how they celebrate?
I think, again, it depends, just like my experience is different from what you just heard. It depends on people. There are some who are very close, and also um, the South Asian, when we talk about generally, I mean, there are Nepalis, in Bangladeshis, Indians, Pakistanis. You know that kebab house, the cook there, an owner is a Nepali. His food is fantastic. He learned it in New Delhi, he said. That's where he grew up. And so the there again, experiences are different in a sense. For example, a friend of mine, I mean, do you know that 47% of the hotels in the United States are owned by Indians, origin people? I should not say Indians, but Indian origin people. And so a friend of mine was telling me, and that he went, stopped at a hotel, and going there, and the guy behind it was, he's a friend of mine who's a Muslim. The guy there was a Hindu. He goes in there. He gave him a better rate to stay in the hotel. So it just depends, and it's very, very interesting that when I see a Sikh, for some reason in India, where we grew up, Sikh, we used to call him Sardarji. That's respect. And I still remember the first time I went to this place. There was a gas station, and you go in there, and I see the Sikh behind the car. I said, "Oh, Sardarji!" Oh my God, he was so happy to hear that. So I don't know how much solidarity is, and the reason the non-solidarity is because it used to be better than what's going on in India at the moment, because that the the part of the Hindutva that Mr. Modi is following, that is affecting not just in India, but it's also here. So it just depends who you are. And I mean, the one thing that I can tell you from my own experience, when I go to a conference, I don't care where that Indian came from. If there is an Indian and he can speak my language, I'll go talk to him. And I found it, the thing that unite people is the language and culture, not the religion, not your color of your skin. It's a culture. It's because when go and I see somebody and said, "Oh, I'm from Rampur," and all of a sudden we sit down and say, "Oh, do you remember that street used to be like this and there used to be this? Oh yeah, it has changed. Now there is this building." And I mean, we enjoy that. So through my experiences, because I have lived United States, India, Pakistan, Australia, Saudi Arabia, all these places. And it's language and culture is the thing that unites people. Religion is for your own sake. Okay, you believe this, you go to your mosque, you go to your temple, you go to your gurdwara, you go to church. I mean, so that's how I feel. But, you know, people have their own opinions.
Okay, thank you.
Some cultures, cultural habits linger for many years, even though they are unfair. I was interested to find out how insidious is the caste system still exists among the Indians in the United States, because many people associate different castes with their names. And still there is insidious prejudice and discrimination against certain classes.
Well, I think if I know Rick, he can give you a better answer on that because he deals with the situation in this country is, again, from my point of view, when I, for example, come here, coming to a new place, I should try to forget about all those back things. But some people bring it with them. And they do practice that because in India, the people, the untouchables, they're now called Dalits. That's, and they, people, they are here. And yeah, go ahead. Why don't you answer?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm the board chair of a group called the International Commission for Dalit Rights. And so it actually comes out of Nepal, but it brings together all people of South Asia affected by caste discrimination, and particularly the Dalits, or the formerly untouchables. And so the question you raised about, well, do people bring their attitudes regarding caste when they move to the US is, it's absolutely true. But that doesn't mean that it's reflected in their everyday actions, because there's certain situations where you're going to see discrimination, whether it's overt or subtle, against people of lower caste. Uh, there was an important legal action against the company Cisco, accusing it of caste discrimination. And I think that didn't go anywhere after many years. But there's been efforts to organize um, proclamations by various governments in California and Seattle and some other places, and at universities, to prohibit caste discrimination. But it's a type of subtle discrimination that in some places it's overt, some places it's not. But it's a social discrimination rather than a legal discrimination. And so it's kind of hard for people in the US to sort of understand it. And so, we are educating various government entities about, how to deal with these issues. But there's a lot to learn, because there are about 6 million Indians in the US, and of course, not all of them are undertake discrimination, but there still are a lot, and there hasn't been a real analysis of the communities to understand in what ways discrimination against lower castes manifests itself. So, thanks.
Yeah, just to add to that, supposedly, as Rick mentioned about the California, because that's where the IT industry, and that's where people actually complained. And it seems like there was in the California legislature, there was a law that Governor, I think his name is Newsom, yeah, he was supposed to sign it, and then it was on his desk. And some of the influential Indians, they say, if you sign this bill, maybe I should not say that. So yeah, there are things there, but as Rick mentioned it's not as overt.
Just to follow up, you talked about the impact that Hindu nationalism is having in India, and how it also is affecting those in the US. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, that's what we are talking about. Even when you talk about Dalits, it's basically the effect of the Hindutva, as they call it, Hindu nationalism. But it seems to me, I'm trying to be kind of, there is so much, there is a Christian nationalism, there is a Hindu nationalism, there is a Muslim nationalism, there is a even Buddhist nationalism. Think about that. I mean, when you think about the Buddhism, you think this, but you should see what happened in Sri Lanka or what happened in other South Asian countries. So that is happening. And India is a big country and it has those issues. But the part about India is that there are people in India, Hindus, who are against it. And I mean, it's Hindutva, particularly with Modi, that has come into the forefront. And then what has happened is at one point, I don't know whether anybody knows, Modi was not allowed to come to United States. He couldn't get a visa. And then later on, as he keeps moving up, now he's the prime minister. He comes and feted at the White House, and he calls Mr. Trump my dear friend. And so what is happening is it's the international politics has put India at a level, we are talking about some kind of a thing against China, the bulwark, all these other countries. So it's happening and it is affecting pretty badly the Muslim community and the Dalit community and the Christian community in India. But I mean, it's actually affecting in this country because the people who called up the governor of California, they were basically followers of the Hindutva ideology. So you're right, it's influencing here.
Good, thank you very much. Other comments or questions?
Yeah, that's
Bush was said that
that's what
the influence was of Hindu nationalism is cracking in India. That's what she hears. Online, are there any people on Zoom who would like to comment or put in questions? I think we could hear you if you want to unmute.
We just met some people from Suriname. And I did have to look at the map and see where Suriname was. I'm not proud of that, but in all honesty, I did have to look. And I haven't had a chance to look up anything on history of Suriname or anything like that. But it's at the very tip, you know where. And so is there a relationship between India and Suriname? Or what
No.
is the relationship?
The relationship between India and, say, Indonesia or Southeast Asia, I mean, so many other countries is that people left India. They were either brought in as, it's not a slave, there's another word, that indentured servants, that they brought in under false pretense that you will go there. So you will find people of Indian origin in ways south, even to the islands close to Australia, to some of these island nations and small nations in South America. They're all over. And slowly and gradually, just like in the United States is happening, the people, when they grow up, there's no slavery anymore. They're doing their work. They're hardworking people. They become involved in the politics. So you'll find out they're all over. Every single country will have it. And this thing, I'm telling you, very interesting story. This guy from India, he was talking to me. He said, you know, Indians are all over the place. I said, what do you mean? He said, I went to Alaska. And I came down and it was raining and somebody gave me an umbrella. He was Indian. So we are all over the place. So it and then slowly and gradually we become part of the society and start taking part in the politics.
So it's a bit of a colonial manifestation, or?
Part of it is colonial in a sense that the Britishers were part of the colonial empire, or before that were the
Yeah,
so
right.
they were going all over the place and they were looking for workers. So they were Englishman is not going to do all the work. So they brought the people from India, which were there, and some people came in. I mean, it's like as I was saying, they in the West Coast, the farms, particularly the Sikh, as our first person elected was also a Sikh origin. So they were hard worker. They were farmers. They came, they farmed. I'm sure initially they worked on the farm and gradually they got enough money to buy their own farms. And basically there are some very established places, wineries and all that kind of stuff on the West Coast. Yeah. So we are a mosaic, as they say.
Okay, any last comments or questions? So let's just thank Dr. Saeed Khan for his presentation on South Asian heritage.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we can look forward to seeing him again in a course that he'll be giving on various religions in the future.